Another edition of the Jim Crowley Show, sitting down with women's basketball head coach Jim Crowley. Coach, always a pleasure to be able to sit down with you.
Great to see you, Chris. Thank you.
Before we get into a recap of the last couple of games, looking outside past you at the beautiful campus here at St. Bonaventure University, and I think one thing that's come up that I've never had a chance to talk with you or any other coach about, the perils of travel. We know we play basketball during a rough time of year here in Western New York. The perils of getting the bus somewhere on time or getting back on time. We were just talking off air about how I stayed over after the George Mason game because of the weather. Does that ever come into your thoughts as far as scheduling is concerned?
Oh, yeah, it's always in your thoughts. And we have a great operations person in Chad Smith. And we're fortunate to have very reliable bus drivers. But, we have a charter flight tomorrow, and there's supposed to be a storm coming in. So right. Chad's already in communication with the charter company. So you're ready to adjust. Fortunately we haven't had to do that before, but there's been times we've had to leave a night early or, stay over or change the flight to fly into Buffalo instead of Bradford. It's just part of it. The one thing that I always feel good about is, we're pretty good at leaving here. I think it's tougher for people to get here.
Right.
So I think it's an advantage that works out in our favor.
You ever get to a point where maybe the travel plans necessitate a walkthrough rather than a shoot around or something?
You're always ready to adjust on those. Mm-hmm. And certainly as the year goes on, you're a lot more fluid with that because, a lot more stuff is in and you've covered. But it's amazing. And fortunately, I've been doing this for a while. It's amazing the number of times I can remember being really stressed out about a change and how it would impact us and it having no impact. We still being able to play, a lot of times what's going to happen is going to happen. Mm-hmm. That what's happened in 24 hours matters very little compared to what happened in the 24 days prior. And it's always kind of a good test of where things are. If hey, all this happened and we still executed really well, maybe a lot of things are in place pretty good.
I just want to ask you that because I know, notoriously coaches are creatures of habit,
right?
And not just the head coach, the entire staff, players to that point absolutely. Too. And I've been on the road when games have been moved to the next day, and it's an opportunity to say, what are we going to sit in our room, or are we going to watch some film? So I was just curious about that because it's not like we're out there in the spring.
Yeah, you got to adjust. I mean, fortunately, really. Spring probably gets games canceled a lot more than we do with their sports are outside. And, if you can get there, you can play in our sport. So, and then there's the random things, right? Last week in Richmond, those games had no fans because of the water thing. So
right.
Even the weather impacts a lot, but there's things that happen. We played in a game one time that the clock malfunctioned at halftime. Mm-hmm. So there's just, you're ready for the what you're unprepared for.
I also wanted to get your take before we start some game recaps and talk about the last week or so. UMass leaving the Atlantic 10. I was talking with Coach Brunelli on the pregame the other day, and of course, I think we're in agreement that it's football motivated, and that's a story for another time. In your time here at St. Bonaventure, you've seen the Atlantic 10 contract, expand. I mean, West Virginia out, Temple out, Xavier, and here comes George Mason from the Colonial, UMass leaving. Gone from 12 to 15 to 14. Where do you think this conference is headed?
Anyone's guess, Chris. I mean, it's survived. It's flourished. It's survived and flourished.
Yeah.
We have good leadership in Bernadette McGlade. We have schools that have a consistent understanding that this is a basketball-centric conference, and people don't hide from that. I don't know if anyone knows. It's a great conversation piece because everyone can offer an opinion and no one can be wrong. But it's, there's a world you could see it just kind of keep going. There's a world you could see it, conferences kind of blowing up. You could see where they could go back old school and go a little more regional.
Yeah.
If anyone tells you they know where college athletics is going in any way, then ask them next what the lotto numbers are, because no one knows. we just get to tomorrow and figure it out.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting looking at the Atlantic 10. You talk regional too, looking at the Metro Atlantic and the Atlantic 10, one of the premier basketball conferences, and we're not saying that because we're both involved. It's just the truth.
Right.
And then you've got these smaller conferences like the Metro Atlantic to think, well, do they merge? Do they disappear? Where do we go from here?
Hey, if the Pac-12 can disappear, it can happen to anybody.
True. Yeah.
I mean, so you got to be proactive with whatever you're going to do. You got to overly communicate so people are on the same page. And I think our league does that very well. One thing that having been in a couple different leagues, one thing that I've always admired about the A10 is from coaches to administrators to presidents to league office, there is a common goal, and it's how many basketball teams can we get in the NCAA tournament, and how can we benefit one another to get there? How can we do what's best for ourselves, but how can we benefit each other to get there, and how can we celebrate when each other does? And that's different than a lot of places.
Sure.
It's different than the place I previously was in. So I think that hopefully will continue us on what's been an incredible history. I think it's the 50th year, either this year or next.
Next year, I believe. Yeah,
it might be the 25, right? So the 25-26 season. So yeah, it's a lot of change, but that there's been some things that have really stayed true, and that's great basketball and great people.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I've always wanted to ask you that we get a chance to do that. All right, we'll start our recap now. We'll go back to the Rhode Island game.
God, that seems forever ago.
It
right?
doesn't it seem forever ago? Just right after the new year. Just not a whole lot to say about that game, except talking with you. Second halves have been so much different from the first half, and when you get out and you only scored 13 points in the first two quarters, there's not a whole lot you can do. You can't really shoot your way out of that, can you?
Yeah, I mean, clearly we have two problems that are consistent in our 5 league games. It's the offensive rebounds we're allowing and the starts we're having. So as coaches, we've got to figure that out. We've got to give some solutions, and as players, we've got to be able to execute those solutions. So and third, and maybe most important, we can't create new problems as we solve those. That's hopefully where we're headed. But we dug a big hole. We played a pretty good third quarter. And every game you're going to recap, we probably could say the same thing.
Yep.
You look at the numbers of our first quarters and our third quarter, just in general scoring, and it's glaring the difference. So as coaches, we just got to do a better job getting the group ready, and we got to play without fear more in the start. We certainly do that coming out of halftime, and obviously I think our kids do a great job adjusting, but we got to be better at the start.
You said playing without fear. Is a lot of that owed to the fact that you have so many young players? They're starting to understand the system, starting to get a little confidence.
Yeah, I just think, and I don't say it in a negative way. I say it in a very positive way, that people want to succeed so much, and that's a heavy burden. And getting used to that and putting that away and just focusing on letting yourself be the player you've worked to be. And I think we do that as we get through even second quarters and then take that momentum into the second half. We got to do a better job as coaches of getting that to where it needs to be at the start.
I think one bright spot that Rhode Island game was only 10 turnovers.
Yeah. And that number's been up and down. That is
right.
That's not a consistent problem. It hasn't been great the last two, but we'll fix that. And again, a lot of those, when we have the really bad first quarters, a lot of it you can look at, we shoot poorly and give it away. I think yesterday we were like 23% and 7 turnovers. So, I thought we did some good things defensively. I thought Rhode Island game, we really were poor offensively in our shot decisions and our I would say more actually our ability and willingness to move the ball. And I think we've adjusted and gotten better from that.
Yeah, I think Honey Carr really took advantage too. Down low.
Yeah, and I thought we could guard her fairly well, to be honest, but she was able to shoot over us. And, we're putting our forwards on an island a lot right now. That's not something that's going to stay that way, but right now we're putting them on an island, and they're not doing a terrible job of the initial defense. But secondary shots are really something that are hurting us.
Well, speaking of forwards, I thought Caitlin Frost really had a coming of age game down in Fairfax against George Mason. A 27-point first quarter by Mason, and I think it was Segura who was shooting the lights out, way above her averages, notwithstanding there. But I thought Caitlin played really, really well at Mason.
Yeah, I thought Mason, they're a really good basketball team, and
Sure.
they're coming off a loss and they're playing at home. And I thought we did a lot of positive things. To your point, we scored, I think, 16 in the first quarter, and you're down 11 or 15 and you're down 12. So we get those kind of numbers. We've got to be able to be in an even better striking distance. But, again, we talked in that game, can we win? How many 5-minute games can we win in the second half? And we won 3 out of 4. And, at some point, this is going to become consistent. It's not just going to be a second half or a 3-quarter. Like yesterday, over 3 quarters, we outscored them. Those are not victories. Those are our growing tools, and continuing to understand how much the preparation helps us get better in those moments and put it all together.
I think a lot of fans too, Coach, if they look at the box score, I'll take Mason's, for instance, since I have it right in front of me, and they look and say, wow, Caitlin Frost got 32 minutes. But they have to be good, productive minutes. I mean, you're just not on the floor for 3 quarters of the game just taking up space.
Yeah, I mean, well, sometimes we have to be because our numbers are what they are, but it's certainly not taking up space. But, I mean, that's always the interesting thing. Right? You earn your playing time, and you earn it from practice. You earn it from when you get your chance. What do you do? And your goal is to make it hard for a coach to take you out instead of finding an excuse to why he, or worrying about why the coach took you out. Like, did you do everything you were supposed to do? Did you play with great effort? Did you play with great energy? And it's helping folks understand that's the mindset. And that's how you control your own destiny with playing time.
All right. So when I had a chance to talk to you post game yesterday, I mentioned that word grit, and that's been going around about this team as we get to the terrific St. Louis game. I'm not calling it amazing because I know that you were going to henpeck it as a coach should for all the deficiencies there. Caitlin almost with another double-double, lots of minutes. Danny scoring because that's kind of been an up and down scale this season. But the fact that 10 down after the first quarter and the team keeps battling back and outscoring by a couple and then coming out of the locker room, outscoring St. Louis in that quarter by a couple and just keep, pressing the fact that maybe we can do this, kind of a will to win. It was a very interesting game to see, to watch.
Yeah, I mean, again, 4 or 5 wins, we've done that. And that shows a lot of resolve that we're really proud of, and that's something we talk a lot about. And we talk about just the fight, the grit.
Yeah.
We're in control of that. And I thought we saw it again yesterday. That can't go anywhere. That's a non-negotiable. So how do we then clean up the execution? Again, yesterday we dug a hole, got it to 4, offensive rebound, turnover. And that combination is really painful. We gave up 35 of 67 points were from after offensive rebounds or turnovers. Our initial part of our defense is there. Our initial part when we don't turn the ball over, our offense is there. But you're not successful with a lot of butts. You gotta execute.
Yeah, and just transitioning into the UMass game yesterday as we sit down to talk. I mean, they had 19 turnovers themselves. It wasn't a runaway or an overpowering game that the Minutewomen played either. It's just one of those cases, a 9-point first quarter. You can't shoot your way out of that.
Yeah, we and early in the first quarter, we had forced them into 3 or 4 turnovers, and we didn't capitalize. And again, part of our growth has to be recognizing when the opportunity is there. And you talk about St. Louis, like we saw the opportunity, and we knew, what, we're in a groove offensively. We got to put some stops together, and we got some stops. We're also fortunate that they missed some shots, and we were able to get some rebounds. But that's where we're trying to find, we're communicating in practice, but that's a game thing. You got to learn. And then who communicates that in the game to make sure people understand this is that time. We are getting stops right here.
It seems like each game is so different into itself. I know that you would want, and you've often said this to me too, consistency. Besides the word grit, you've used the word consistency. And I know you'd like to see maybe not necessarily the win, but consistent play from game to game too, right?
Yeah, and that's sometimes challenging, right? Like you brought up Danny, and like she's at the top of the scout, and if other people are making some shots, that means that scout is effective, and that's tough to battle out of sometimes when a whole page is dedicated to you. Now, if some other people make a shot here or there, now that shifts things quite a bit.
Sure.
And you know, if you look at some of the games, like the St. Louis game, we had a third person in double figures. And again, we were getting scoring around the rim. We were getting scoring in the paint. We were getting scoring outside the arc. We were scoring at the foul line. Those allow a lot of different things. So, but yeah, there's certainly consistent. You may have an off day shooting. Do you find your way to the foul line? You know, one of the things we talk about that we haven't shot the ball great, but we're not rebounding the ball great. That's a really bad combo. Like if we're not going to shoot it great, and we're turning it over. So how are we creating more possessions for ourselves? And what can we do for that? We created 19 more yesterday. But we gave away 24, and you add in the 19 offensive rebounds, 17 offensive rebounds. That's just not a winning formula. And it's self-inflicted wounds right now. Again, our competitiveness, our toughness, our fight, growing, improving, finding consistency. But we've got to stop beating ourselves, right? It's no different in basketball than football. The old football adage: more teams lose games than win games. And we got to get to where we give ourselves a chance to win games because we don't beat ourselves.
All right, we'll take a break right here. And when we come back with head coach Jim Crowley, we're going to talk a little more about the UMass game and about the schedule ahead as we come back here on the Coach Jim Crowley Show. Back in a moment. Thought that was a good place for a break.
Yeah. Sorry, I mean, I got all the winter.
No, you're fine. We all sound like that. I want to pause this. All right, back with women's head coach Jim Crowley. Coach, when we left, we were talking a little bit about that UMass game, and an observation I wanted to make to you. I thought Aurora Yongo played really well. I've seen her in spurts of athleticism out of the gym, but I haven't really seen her contribute. And I don't think fans have really seen her contribute too much yet. And I thought she took a big step up yesterday.
Yeah, and again, hopefully she's able to keep doing that. She gave us some athleticism at the guard spot. She always does a nice job rebounding. You know, and she's, because of the scenario we're in, she's getting an opportunity. And to your point, she made the most of it yesterday, which will present more opportunity for her as long as she keeps practicing well. So hopefully she'll continue that.
As much as we love Danny and love seeing her get hot and tying her season and career high yesterday, I don't think the team is built for just Danny scoring, right? You need that.
Yeah, we really didn't get anything around the rim yesterday. You know, and credit to UMass on that. And some of that was a coaching error. We were getting a lot of good looks from three in the third quarter, and that helped us get back in it. We kept getting them in the fourth quarter, and they didn't drop. You know, so but we got the ball inside in the first, especially the second quarter, but in the first half pretty good, and there were some positive things there, and we got away from it. We're at our best if we can, you know, find scores around the rim, get to the foul line, and then that frees up our shooting from the perimeter.
Just a quick aside, I know the battles with Coach Verdi there at UMass for so many years with the Minutewomen, and I saw him coach his pit team to a big upset.
32-point comeback.
SMU. Yeah, that was crazy.
32, they're down 31 at the half. I saw that. I never coached. I coached against Coach Verdi, not here. But I mean, that's you know, comebacks are an amazing thing. Where was he? I remember watching Kentucky men have an amazing one when Patina was there against LSU. I think that was 30 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Momentum's a crazy thing. I think they went on a 32-0 run to overtake them.
Amazing. I'm still amazed SMU is in the Atlantic Coast Conference, but again, that's talk for another time. Let's talk about what's coming up here in the conference. A couple of more league games. You've got 3 in the next 7, 8 days. 2 on the road, 1 at home. Let's talk about Richmond. The top of the Atlantic 10 seems to be George Mason on the women's side, and for the last couple of seasons. But this is a really fickle league as far as who can beat who matches up with who. Talk to us about the matchup with Richmond.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a nice run right now. The next few, and to your point, a few of them on the road, but I mean, Richmond, Davidson, Joe's, Fordham are, four of the hottest teams in the league right now. Richmond is very experienced in their system. They pass the ball the best of anyone in the conference. They have great length across the board, and they can all shoot it. So the length will impact. We can't let the length have an impact on our offense because, that impacted us a little bit yesterday. So we got to grow from that. And then we have to defend as a group, and we can't get frustrated if they hit a few in a row. I mean, they are playing really well. I mean, this past week they beat George Mason and they won at Davidson convincingly. So we've got our work cut out for us. We've got to be able to force them into some extended offensive possessions. We can't give away possessions. We've got to find ways to get open looks and be confident in those. We got to find ways to get to the rim or the foul line to find some points.
Richmond coming into that game on Wednesday, 4-1 in the conference, 13-5 overall. Will you or the staff make it a point to show the freshmen the spider in the glass cage? And normally sometimes they'll pull the spider out for their mascot there and put it.
I don't know if I've ever seen it.
Have you not seen it?
I don't recall having seen it. I'm sure at some point in my years down there I have, but it's not. The only one I remember like that is being at an LSU football game and Mike the Tiger rolling around next to you. Yeah,
they the first time I was ever down at the Robins Center, they pulled the spider out in the cage, and I said, no, thank you.
Yeah, that's enough.
We're good. We're good. And you mentioned Davidson as well, getting them at home next Saturday, Scout Day, which is a very special day for the fans in attendance. Again, 4-1. Even though, and here's the interesting thing about Davidson, right? They're 4-1 in league, but only 9-8 overall.
Yeah, they played a great schedule, and they're just getting healthy. They had a couple kids come back from ACLs, and they had a couple kids with early injuries, so they're at full strength right now. And I mean, two of the least dribbling, best passing teams in our league. I mean, the ball's going to move. They're going to make you have to communicate and move defensively. And again, another big physical team that we'll see again later in the year down in North Carolina. But again, I mean, they got beat up yesterday by Richmond, but they're playing really, really good basketball. And I think they play at Mason on Wednesday. So it'll be a busy week for them as well.
And one last mini preview before we get to sit down and talk again. On the road, Hawk Hill is always a tough place to play, no matter what the records are. And St. Joe's, I think, 12-4 overall, 3-2 in the league. And that's a Wednesday night game. The fans are going to be there too. So that's going to be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, great forwards. I mean, those two forwards. And again, another team that all three of those teams have kids that have played multiple years together and really know each other on both ends. And, are able to overcome some challenges because of that. And I think Joe's they've already been upset twice. Duquesne got them. And then VCU, I think, just got them this weekend.
Yes.
So I think we're going to see a team that's pretty focused when we get down there. And obviously a team that has a very good inside presence that is an area we've struggled to go against.
The health of the team this time of year, what are we, about 2/3 of the way through the entire season? Talk a little about, if you can, the health of the team.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've got, we're going to have freshmen playing a lot of minutes, right? And they hit the freshman wall, and that they can't. they gotta not even they gotta climb it before they hit it. We do have two people with lower body injuries. We got good news on one today. Probably not going to see them in a while. We do think Hannah will be returning very soon. Maya Davidson is redshirting this year, so we won't see her at all this season. But hope to have Hannah back this week. And then Lena and Keika, we hope we can get at least one of them back in the month of January and the other back in February.
Okay. Well, I would think all things considered, that's not too bad, right?
No. The fact that we can get them back, and obviously we have a great training staff with Eric, our trainer, and folks in the strength coach with Darren Fisk, and they're part of it, and then injuries are part of it, and it's they happen, and then what happens next, like everything in life.
As we wrap up, Coach, besides the obvious, some wins, what would you like to see out of this team now during this stretch of league games?
Yeah, I think this is a really good opportunity to see what is our competitive nature. I mean, we're playing a number of the top teams in the league. I mean, if you look at the top of the league standings, the next 4 teams we play are all sitting atop the league standings. So what do we got? How do we approach that? Do we correct this first quarter thing we have going on? Do we continue to have the grit we've had the last 3 games? Do we start to move the ball a little bit more with the pass? Do we shore up our rebounding? Do we continue to get good play from some of our young players? Do some other people emerge? It's really good opportunities to see where some things are at and how well we're getting better, and how we as coaches continue to motivate and develop and find ways to put people in the best spot possible.
Women's head coach Jim Crowley, as always, a pleasure sitting down, and we'll meet again in a couple of weeks, have some recaps of these games, and then look forward to another part of the league schedule. Coach, thanks as always for your time.
Thank you, Chris.